Why do all mainstream villains sound the same? We get brooding bad boys with tragic backstories who are secretly soft on the inside, or over-exaggerated gods bent on world domination, without any real substance or intelligence behind their actions. But truly evil villains, the ones who make your skin crawl or your blood boil because you genuinely don't know how the hero will overcome them, they're not just doing evil things, they're doing what they genuinely believe is right, and that's what makes them so scary. I thought I'd make a video on the 8 biggest mistakes I've seen writers make when writing fantasy villains and how to fix them. If you're new here, my name is Brianna and I post videos every Sunday that help you become a better writer. I also make easy to use writing workbooks that help you build and outline your novel from start to finish, so if you're interested, check them out in my Etsy shop, link in the description below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. This is part 2 of my video from last week, which went over the first 3 big mistakes I've seen new writers and authors make when writing their fantasy villains and how to fix them. They're pretty big ones, so if you haven't watched that video yet, I highly recommend doing so. But let's get into the rest of the mistakes. Mistake number 4 is not making them a real threat. This is another big one, and it's one that I see constantly in fantasy writing. Your villain needs to be powerful enough to genuinely threaten your hero. If your protagonist can easily defeat the antagonist whenever they want, then where's the tension? Where's the conflict? A weak example of this might be your hero, a young mage named Alara, has mastered elemental magic, can teleport at will, and has a magical sword that cuts through anything. Your villain, Corvus, is a skilled swordsman but has no magic and relies on conventional tactics. The only real threat he poses is that he's kidnapped Alara's little brother and he's cunning enough to stay one step ahead so she never finds him. But when Alara does find him and they finally face off in the climactic battle, Alara just wins. Easily. Because of course she does. She's objectively more powerful in every way. There was never any real doubt about the outcome. We were just waiting for that moment when Alara can get the upper hand and infiltrate his hideout because we know that when she finally confronts him, it's over for him. This is boring. Your readers need to believe that the villain can actually win. Otherwise, why should they care? A stronger example might be that Corvus may not have magic, but he spent decades studying it. He knows the weaknesses of every magical discipline. He's created anti-magic wards, trapped entire castles to drain the life force of spellcasters, and he's personally tortured and unalived enough mages to understand exactly how they think and fight. When Alara faces him, her magic doesn't work the way it should. Her teleportation spell misfires, her elemental attacks are absorbed by the runes carved into his armor. And worse, he's been studying her specifically for years. He knows her patterns, her fears, her weaknesses. He's 3 steps ahead of her at every turn, not just one. Suddenly the fight isn't a sure thing anymore. The villain is a legitimate threat, and readers will actually worry about whether the hero can win. Always err on the side of making your villain too powerful rather than too weak. If your hero has to struggle, adapt, and grow to overcome the villain, the victory will feel earned and satisfying. But if the villain is weak, the whole story falls flat. Mistake number 5 is making your villain do pointless evil things. It's when your villain does cruel, sadistic things that serve no purpose other than to show the reader, hey, look how evil this villain is. Imagine this. Your villain, Crag, is in the middle of executing his plan to take over the kingdom. But first, he stops to kick a puppy. Then he unalives a random servant for bringing him the wrong wine. Then he burns down an orphanage just because he was bored on a Tuesday afternoon. None of these actions make him seem more threatening or evil. They make him seem incompetent and cartoonish. Real villains don't usually waste their time on petty cruelty when they have bigger goals to accomplish. And when they do commit atrocities, there's always a reason that makes sense within their twisted worldview. Instead of random acts of cruelty, what if Crag burns down the orphanage because it's located in a strategic position that he needs for his siege? He doesn't enjoy unaliving children. In fact, he barely thinks about them at all. They're collateral damage, acceptable losses in service of his greater objective. He's not cruel for cruelty's sake, he's ruthlessly pragmatic, which, in my opinion, is much more chilling. Or better yet, what if he does spare the orphanage, but only because it makes him look merciful to the people he's trying to conquer? He's using his kindness as a strategic tool to win their hearts, which furthers his development as a disturbingly calculated character. Every evil action your villain takes should serve a purpose within your story. It should either advance their goals, reveal something important about their character, or raise the stakes for the heroes. Random cruelty just makes your villain seem like a poorly written psychopath. Mistake number 6 is that they monologue instead of acting. It's the classic villain mistake, explaining their entire evil plan to the hero instead of just unaliving them. We've all seen this 1,000 times. The villain has captured the hero, has them completely at their mercy, but instead of ending the threat, they spend the next 20 minutes explaining exactly how their scheme works, why they're doing it, and how the hero can't possibly stop them. Then, surprise, surprise, the hero escapes and uses that information to defeat them. It's the most cliche way to make your villain look like an idiot. So a weak example would be along the same lines. Your villain Nox has finally cornered the hero in his lair. He has them magically bound, completely helpless, but instead of ending them immediately, he launches into a detailed explanation of how he's going to use the forbidden ritual to unmake reality, starts reminiscing about his tragic past, and gives the hero enough time to break free and stop him. It's an easy fix. Have your villain act, not talk. If Nox has the hero or another character captured, he should either end them immediately or keep them in prison for a strategic reason. Maybe he needs their blood for the ritual, or he wants to use them as bait for someone else. I really apologize about this wishy-washy lighting. Unfortunately, this is the only time I can film, as usual. Anyways, if your villain does reveal information, it should be because he's logically confident that it doesn't matter. Maybe he tells the hero about his plan after he's already completed the ritual and it's too late to stop him. Or maybe the hero somehow gets him to reveal parts of his scheme, but he still deliberately withholds the crucial details that would allow the hero to interfere. Your villain should always be competent and intelligent, unless for your story they're not, then that's a whole different thing. But this whole mistake is based on your villain being competent and intelligent. They've gone this far for a reason. Don't make them suddenly stupid just so your plot can work. Mistake number 7 is when they have no personal connection to the hero. Some of the best villain-hero dynamics in fantasy come from personal connections. When the conflict is personal, the stakes feel higher and the emotional payoff is stronger. So a weak example of this might be your hero, a knight named Theron, is trying to stop the villain, who is an evil sorcerer, Malachor. They've never met before. Malachor doesn't know who Theron is and honestly doesn't care. They're just on opposite sides of the conflict. This creates distance. This conflict feels generic and impersonal. So a stronger example might be, what if Malachor was Theron's mentor? Theron trained under him for years, looked up to him, trusted him. Then he discovered that Malachor had been using forbidden necromancy, conducting horrific experiments on innocent people. When Theron confronted him, Malachor tried to justify his actions, claiming that sacrificing a few lives to unlock ultimate magical power was worth it for the advancement of knowledge. Theron, horrified, tried to stop him and barely escaped with his life. Now every encounter between them is loaded with history, betrayal, and conflicting emotions. Malachor sees Theron as a disappointment, someone who had potential but lacked the conviction to do what was necessary. And Theron is fighting to confront the fact that someone he admired was capable of such evil, and because he believes it's on him to stop Malachor. That personal connection raises the emotional stakes and makes every interaction between hero and villain more intense and meaningful. Now, this doesn't mean that your villain has to be your hero's father, mentor, or long-lost sibling. But some connection, whether it's ideological, historical, or personal, will make the conflict far more engaging than if they were just strangers fighting on opposite sides. For example, in The Lord of the Rings, Frodo and Sauron never actually meet face-to-face, but they're connected through the ring itself, which contains a piece of Sauron's soul and constantly tempts Frodo with corruption. Their conflict is intensely personal because Frodo is literally carrying his enemy's essence with him every step of the journey. That ideological and supernatural connection makes their conflict compelling even without a direct confrontation. And lastly, mistake number 8 is that they never evolve or adapt. And this is something a lot of writers seem to forget. Your villain is actively trying to win. They're not just sitting around waiting for the hero to level up and come fight them. They're learning, adapting, and getting stronger too. A static villain is a boring villain. So a weak example of this might be, your villain, the Dragon Lord Zyrax, has the same powers and tactics at the end of the story as he did at the beginning. The hero gets stronger and learns new abilities, but Zyrax remains unchanged. So when the final battle comes, the hero has grown enough to defeat him. This makes the villain feel like a video game boss rather than a living, breathing character. So you can fix this by showing your villain adapting to the hero's strategies. When the hero first escapes from Zyrax using a teleportation spell, Zyrax studies that magic and creates counterspells. When the hero finds allies, Zyrax systematically targets and eliminates them. He learns from his failures, adjusts his plans, and becomes more dangerous as the story progresses. Maybe Zyrax initially underestimates the hero and sends weak minions after them. But after the hero defeats those minions, Zyrax realizes this adversary is more capable than he thought and starts taking them seriously. He changes tactics, uses more resources, calls in favors, and generally becomes a bigger threat. This creates an escalating sense of danger and makes the final confrontation feel like a genuine clash between two forces that have both grown throughout the story. Your villain should be just as dynamic as your hero. They're an active participant in the conflict, intelligently and determinedly pursuing their goals. So there you have it, 8 mistakes to look out for when writing fantasy villains and how to fix them. When you get all of these elements right, you create a villain that readers will remember long after they finish your book. Not because they were likable, but because they were compelling, terrifying, and/or undeniably evil in all the right ways. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, you might want to watch this one next. So tell me, what's your favorite example of a truly evil villain in fantasy? Let me know in the comments below and what makes them so effective for you. Until the next chapter.